we really want to reinvent how do you evaluate a business. Sub 4 minutes is our fastest loan that we've been able to give end to end.
Today I'm joined by Lara Gilman and we're going to be talking about UK business loans providers where she is head of product. So how are you doing, Lara? Okay?
Yeah, I'm all right so far. Iwoca started in 2012, so we've been around for almost 8 years. We originally focused really on solving cash flow problems for small businesses in a way that is simple, transparent, and easy for a non-expert in finance to use it so they can just keep running their business. For us, we really want to reinvent how do you evaluate a business. And so that's where we've kind of built proprietary underwriting system that actually look at the whole business. So for example, there are some things that we'll use machine learning for because that's really where it's optimized to kind of understand the full transaction set of a business in a way a human could never do. But we'll also blend that with sort of human intervention. So a human can also take a look at a business and really get to know it and say, well, wait a minute, you may only have one client, but that client is the NHS. Yeah. You're a really reliable client. Kind of this blend of human and technology allows us to serve customers that banks wouldn't otherwise serve. Yeah. And so that's really kind of how we think about it.
And I guess the tech there is what is helping you in terms of not only sort of reliability but speed, things like that?
Yeah, we had a great kind of piece come out recently that our fastest loan was faster than Mo Farah. Right. So yeah, I actually can't remember what Mo Farah's 1,500 meter record is, but ours is sub 4 minutes is our fastest loan that we've been able to give end to end.
Really impressive.
And that's exactly it's the ability to consume data and actually make a good decision.
There's a nice sort of drop off from the tech over to the human, and that seems like a really important area for you guys, right?
Yeah, if you think about it, at a big picture level, what we're trying to do is say, what was the best part about the banking experience over the last century? Well, the best part was actually that human relationship. The best part was being able to have a trusted partner you could go to, ask questions, understand what's going on, what does it mean for you and your business? Yeah. And so we said, okay, we want to keep that because that's really special. But we also need to introduce speed. Yeah. And so how do we do that? And so that's where really the platform kind of evolved from this kind of principle of saying we want to deliver exceptionally high-touch customer experience and customer service with this speed of delivery and this kind of high-tech solution. Yeah. That's really robust. We have a proprietary CRM system that means that 98% of our calls are answered in 30 seconds and are intelligently routed to your dedicated account manager. And so for us, the experience, the service, and the tech really have to marry. Yeah. And that is kind of a core principle that we'll have forever.
Do you find that your sort of product teams are segmented in that way? Is everything going directly through you? I guess as the person in charge of everything will be going through you, but do you have sort of sub people running different sections?
We have sort of the front of house and the back of house, and the front of house really is organized around the user experience. So a team that looks after our leads, who are the leads coming through the door, how do we make that experience great, and then as a user gets onboarded, great, I'm focusing on new users, and then I'm focusing on how we retain users. And so that's very much the front of house experience. And the engines that power the business are really around, great, our CRM system, which kind of focuses on the system that our ops team uses and our marketing team uses to sort of have a relationship with customers, and obviously it's tied very closely to the front of house as well. Our underwriting system, so how do we consume data, how do we find signal in the data, and what does that mean? And then also kind of our fintech systems, which actually look at the cash flow, and then there's another team which actually says, great, while everyone else is looking at kind of the business or consumers, I'm looking at partners. And I want to make sure that how we are approaching our partnerships is productive for the partners, productive for us, and actually are bringing real value to the end user.
You mentioned that you've got a pretty complicated and intelligent tech stack, but have there been situations where you've relied on others, and in what capacity?
We do use a lot of third parties, everything from helping develop our KYC processes, so we work with Onfido. We use Intercom to kind of help manage some of our communications with customers and our FAQs and how we sort of keep that live. We use Yodlee for customers who aren't doing open banking. They can also connect their bank accounts via Yodlee as an alternative, which actually as open banking gets more mature, that may change, but I'm sure Yodlee's on top of it.
you've helped over 25,000 small businesses since 2012. That's a really impressive amount, isn't it? And especially considering that you've got a very defined segment of kind of the size of user.
We're sort of carving a space out in this market, and actually I'm quite excited about seeing the mindset change and sort of expectations rise from small businesses. And one kind of cool example of that for us is actually, we come out and we sort of did some analysis that showed that we're actually starting to take meaningful market share from the banks. If you sort of look at our core product for our credit facility, our credit facility is sort of an alternative to an overdraft in some respects. It's very different, but alternative to. And actually, if you look at the market, we've kind of surpassed some of the banks in terms of market share. So we're now at roughly 12%. So there was like 36,000 overdraft facilities open in Q4 of 2018, and we opened something like more than 13,000 credit facilities. So it's kind of showing, what I am excited is almost the step change of what people's expectations are in terms of what kind of service they want, what kind of speed they want, and the fact that we're at the forefront of that, and then starting to see traction in the market in a really meaningful way against competitors and incumbents who've been there for hundreds of years. That's quite exciting and quite powerful.
Sure.
What we did in version 1 of lending, or maybe version 2.0 of lending, is sort of do what the banks do, but do it so much better. And sort of actually sort of say, all right, cool, we'll just take it online. The internet is here, we're gonna do everything you do, and we're gonna use machine learning and algorithms to make it so much better. But actually, as I look forward, what I'm really excited about is saying, what if we reinvented everything about finance? What if we actually just thought about, really the core elements of, we didn't just do what banks did, but actually we went back to the users and sort of looked at how they run their businesses in a deep way and said, okay, is there any other way that we can engage with you that maybe doesn't require you to either come to a marketplace or come to us, or that actually we can go to you in a different way? And that's kind of where our thinking is going now. That's, let's say, lending 3.0. How do we even move beyond what banks have done historically?
What I want to do now is just take a look at a little bit of the loan application from your desktop product. So we're just going to take a look at that now. So this is the process of entering in the amount, £10,000, and we'll get started by that call to action at the bottom. We've got a progress indicator on the left-hand side there, followed by an introducing the business, I guess a sort of a KYB process, or the beginnings of a KYB process, which include us going through the process of entering in our details. This is all pretty straightforward, but what we've got here is sort of, I guess, specific bits of information being produced for specific sort of scenarios. So in this instance, you're
and actually, if I can kind of add one point there as it's kind of going through, what's happening in the background is we're kind of digesting this data in real time. And so actually we're starting to be able to get a picture of the user and starting to actually be able to think about what they might be eligible for.
So that's happening on the fly, right?
Exactly. So that's kind of one of the reasons it is able to be so fast. For example, in the bottom left-hand corner, if in the early stages you'd given us some indicators that we knew immediately that maybe you wouldn't qualify for the 10,000, but maybe you qualified for 5,000, we'll actually say provide kind of a feedback loop that sort of says, look, you asked for 10,000, but based on your revenue or whatever, you may only be eligible for 5. And so we try to sort of find ways to give users some immediate feedback as they go through the journey.
What are the sort of priorities there from your perspective? I guess it's just in getting the right information for you to be able to make decisions on the fly, is that right?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The way that we kind of set it up internally is we kind of thought about data, and we had to break it down into 2 kind of problem sets. And they require 2 different kinds of mindsets. So our data scientists don't care how the user gives them the data. And then on the other side is our front of house who says, right, I'm not going to do all the data analytics, and so I don't actually need to understand my emphasis is not on understanding all the intricacies of the data. My emphasis is understanding on what is the data you need and what is the way I can do that is clear and digestible and easy for the user. And so kind of separating out data into those 2 problems.
Was there anything which they were particularly considering when they were designing that sort of flow, or was it all guided by the data collection activity?
what makes that easier is that everyone kind of has goal harmony. So everyone sort of says, yeah, we get it. We need to make, at the core of what we're doing is the principle that we give every customer the right product.
Yeah, okay.
To do that, we need to have robust fundamentals, which means we need to have great data that we can use and is relevant, so we're not asking for unnecessary data. We also need to make it very clear for the customer why they're giving us the data and what we're going to do with it, and so that's a lot of responsibility on us.
Yeah.
And so for us, that's kind of things we think about are like, are there other feedback loops we can provide? Is there other context we can provide? So for example, we were the first lender to integrate with open banking for all 9 banks.
Right.
The first big 5, and then a few more. That journey was really interesting because open banking is still quite new to users.
Yeah.
And so we really want to be on the forefront, but actually at the same time we're aware that there is an element that we need to help users understand and trust open banking.
Yeah. Okay.
And what that means for them.
We stopped at the loading screen, so we saw the user's decision making happening. After that process, the user will be asked to upload a series of documents,
right,
and link up.
Possibly, depending on this. Yep.
For sure. So they'll either link up documents, or they will go via I would imagine, the APIs. But then after that, and this is where we want to look at, is the actual delivery of that decision.
What we're trying to do is understand immediately, like, what can we give you, and what further information can we need? So it's really aimed to understand the user. So in some cases, it might be like, actually, by linking your accounts, we're good. We have everything we need. We can give you the loan, and we just need to take you through at that point of the KYC. We also may say, well, actually, you could be eligible, but we would ask for an additional guarantor. In which case, that will take them down a different journey of saying, look, we think you could be eligible, but it would actually make it stronger for you to have an additional guarantor. Here's what that means. I'll take you down that journey. The third element is saying, actually, you've asked for quite a big loan, and therefore we need these following documentations.
Okay.
The important overriding principle in that scenario is that we're not asking for everything from everyone.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's really about not wasting anyone's time.
Were there any situations in the past where you found that you were showing too much user? How did you retract that? I guess this goes back to your user testing in a way to figure out what is and isn't too much. And
where we notice that people get kind of nervous or frustrated or confused is if we've asked for something that they don't get. Well, why do you need that?
Yeah.
And for us, that's really where we say, okay, cool, that's a point of friction. And we need to explain or provide context of what that means. And so in that case, that's where we think about, all right, so what are the tools in our toolbox? It could be that, and this is for us where kind of, do we understand the problem deeply enough to be open to a solution that fundamentally provides the user that information in the transaction? Okay, I get why you're asking for this now. Cool, let me keep going.
Okay. Next, we're going to sort of take a look at one of the videos, which is accessing sort of the bank accounts.
Yeah, cool.
So we've got to verify our trading history.
Yeah.
Completing the action here, we've got 2 options. So 3 options are there. So first is to link an internet banking account. We're going to go through the process of this in particular. We've got the Barclays account here, and then a little bit of drop-down menus exposing certain requirements. Then we're directed over to the Barclays page. I guess that happens via their API.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that loads up, and we've got a bit of information required here from our side. We haven't got the sort of the completion of that journey, but I thought it was just interesting to talk about how we've linked up there between sort of the general link between you guys and with Barclays. So how does that work? I guess that's massively benefiting from the first phase of open banking. So
we have more than 90% of our customers can use open banking. Half of them do. Yeah. And we think there's a little bit of trust in there. There's a little bit of question about what this is and what it means, which we think is partly our responsibility to help address, but also we think is open banking's responsibility to help us address. Yeah. And then the other part of it is, of those 50 who kind of make it through, actually a lot of them fail. And that's where we sort of look to the bank and say, come on, like there is, this can be better. So the API connections fail, or the actual? So it's a mixed bag. So what's interesting is, for a long time, and actually this is sort of slowly improving, but we didn't even know, for many of our failed connections, we actually didn't have a great feedback loop from the bank of why.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was really hard because we couldn't fix it.
Yeah.
The reality is, for us, there also comes with other benefits that we're really excited about. One is that, with access to the data, we can get to know the business better and actually be able to understand, have a better understanding of what we can offer and why. And so actually be able to better tailor our products to the needs of our customers and ultimately be able to serve a wider range of customers.
How have you found the experience of using their software?
Yeah, so what I kind of mentioned earlier, some of the kind of early releases, we didn't even have a sandbox environment before we went into production. So to test something, as I said, we'd have to go around the floor and be like, who has a account at X, and can you go ahead and try this and let us know how it works.
Right.
So those kind of things we actually did go back and kind of work with the Open Banking Commission and sort of say, this is what we're experiencing, help.
Okay, cool.
And so actually it's really nice to have that dialogue, and they're very much aware of it.
Yeah.
I think, the same token, and I sort of appreciate this from their side, this is so innovative and it's so new, and it's kind of reinventing what data is going to look like in the UK and possibly even globally. That of course it's bumpy.
Sure.
So we continue to be patient, we continue to invest in it, and we continue to kind of work closely with banks to try to maximize what we have. But yes, there are war stories.
Sure. We're going to take a look now at the sort of the business credit application from Tide's perspective, and we can see how much we can get approved for, and enter the amount of turnover over the past 12 months and so on. This is all Tide's infrastructure, all of their...
It's a co-brand,
Co-branded, is it? Interesting.
Yeah.
So I imagine there's a lot of design work that went in then from both sides. And then once we've entered in all that information, we will click on the connect button. I consent to giving Iwoca permission, and then you'll run the checks on your own back end.
Exactly.
And then reading through that privacy policy, scroll down through that. Are these I guess these are a combination, right, of yours and theirs?
Correct.
Yep. And then we're going to find out the limits. It's really quick, super quick. And then we got notification of how long it should take. So nice use of sort of language there to talk a little bit about what's going on in the background there, and managing expectations about the wait time. Super important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to just take a few seconds to have a wait around, and then they're going to tell us the limits of what we can access. So
I think as that's kind of loading up, what I can add to this is, well, one part, what I kind of mentioned to you earlier, was that this is all the fruits of others' labor, and I'm arriving now and going, oh, it's so cool. But actually, Tide really helped us sort of, how do we rethink where to bring finance where it hasn't been before, and how it doesn't. They don't have to come to us. For us, the kind of power of the fintech revolution in general is this disaggregation of services and allowing businesses to become really experts on one particular problem. But actually, for this to then scale up, these services have to get rebundled, but we think that rebundling can be really different. And so this is a great example of that. We're trying to help, part of our strategy is really to be connected to the ecosystem and help it develop. And so working with Tide not only gave us the opportunity to test a white labeled solution and sort of understand what that looks like with another partner, but actually do our own development of our lending API that we can then open to other partners in lots of different ways.
Okay, cool.
And so this is really around how do we contribute to this new financial ecosystem.
Yes.
Actually, it's interesting, it even becomes almost like a thought partner in some questions. Are we thinking about this? What do you think? What have you seen? And so you're looking at the world or your markets in a just different lens. And it kind of means that in that same way that we were kind of talking earlier, the importance of cross-functional teams and what those different perspectives bring, actually, to be fair, at a partnership level, that's exactly what also happens. Is that, I look at the world differently than you. Oh, that's interesting. What does that mean in terms of what maybe we can do together? And so we certainly experienced that with Tide, but actually we experienced that with funding options, with our broker partners, with our affiliates, with our accountants. Like that conversation also helps sort of spurn new, interesting ideas that wouldn't have otherwise considered.
Yeah.
And so you're not sort of left within your own four walls to say, right, what does the world need?
Yeah.
So that's actually been kind of a non-technical but quite powerful source of inspiration.
And it seems as though it's going to be super important in the long run. This is the way that it's going now. You know, all of the fintechs are talking about the idea of becoming, or the kind of current account providers are talking about becoming hub and spoke models. So sort of allowing services like yourselves to plug into their ecosystem and sort of display all their information. It allows you to be super specific and really kind of focused on what you do really well, which was that sort of that underlying tech, all
absolutely.
that really good delivery stuff, and also the idea of human interaction and things like that. You've got that to focus on.
Yeah.
I guess unless you've got anything else to add on that, we should probably round off now.
Cool, that sounds great.
Great, so that's all the time we've got for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stop by next week when we'll be talking to TransferWise about how they build their borderless account. If you want to see more of the 11FS Pulse product, head over to pulse.11fs.com. And if you've got any questions about the product or want to suggest a journey for us to look at either on our platform or on this show, hit us up at pulse@11fs.com or find us on Twitter @11fspulse. Thank you very much. It's been really good to chat to you.
Likewise, this has been really fun.
Cool. See you later, guys.